But is he the best player in this draft on his own? Without a doubt.
Please show me a better example of a Bruce Arians quarterback.
Hello and welcome back to Tank Observers Podcast. My name is Jackson McCarty, alongside my partner Chris Barr, and today, what are we doing, Topher?
Well, we're going to be talking about running back superlatives, but before that, Miami might be passing on Tua.
Yeah, there's been some reports of them potentially liking Justin Herbert more as a talent. And if you listen to our quarterback superlatives, I'm not a Herbert guy.
No, you're not. Actually, I think you're quite the opposite of a Herbert guy. You are a Herbert hater.
I'm a Herbert phobe, if you will.
And I'm not gonna lie, I don't like him too much myself. I think, like I said, I mentioned it when I was talking about him. He looks like a franchise quarterback, and Tua, while probably better, doesn't. He just does not look like a franchise quarterback.
Let's not push that. Herbert has very nice potential. He's got a lot of great looking things, but he doesn't use them. He just doesn't. You watch Oregon, and he is constantly, he looks like he's just not interested. Tua plays with his heart, and Tua has very good traits. With the injury, I can kind of understand it, but you do not pass on Tua.
Justin Herbert has some wild measurables. He really does. And I can see why they're attracted to him. He fits the bill, you know? 6'6", probably going to run a sub 4.6 40. He has a cannon for an arm. But I agree. He looks disinterested when he's playing. He doesn't look like he's going to get there.
Tyree Jackson had great measurables, and he got taken in the third round by the Chargers. What's he doing now? A backup in the XFL. It's all about what you can do with your talent. And there's no chance in my mind that you pass up on Tua.
I mean, unless they trade up. What if
To Cincy?
See, I like the idea of them trading up for Chase Young, because I feel like that would just be a smarter move. Of course, you know, they made that mistake of getting Deion Jordan. I'm sure a lot of people remember Deion Jordan.
Chase Young is no Deion Jordan, though.
Yeah, but that, I like that. I like build from the defense, but, I like Tua better than Herbert, if that's what we're going off of.
Yeah.
So that's where we stand. So without further ado, I believe we could get into the running backs.
Time to kick off superlatives?
Yeah, and why don't you start?
All right. The most obvious one, and the one superlative that is going to stick through the rest of these videos, is you've got to have a prom king. For every position, there's got to be a top rating guy. But with running back, it gets a little bit closer there. We've got DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, J.K. Dobbins, somebody that I'll mention later that I think might be the best running back in the class. But we found our king after a lot of searching. Topher, who did we pick?
DeAndre Swift, Georgia, and he's the best one. He's got it all. He can run, he can catch, he runs great routes, and he just has all of that. He's got that shiftiness that you like. Me personally, we talk about this on our own, so you guys wouldn't know, but I don't think he has that every down back build. Shady McCoy pulled it off, so I'm not saying he can't. But shifty guys, a little less durable. So what do you think?
Yeah, their bodies aren't built to take the brunt of the force. Like Darren Sproles, he was utilized perfectly where he was. Danny Woodhead for a little bit there. Guys like that, they fit a certain role, but I think DeAndre Swift has so much more potential beyond that just because of the strict fact at how he runs. I think he's got a lot more power in his legs than his size would lead you to believe. I don't think that he can be I don't think he can be the only back in the backfield, but I think that's a dying breed anyways. If you put him next to a big brute, maybe somebody like Keyshawn Vaughn, if you want to double up in this draft, if you have nobody on the depth chart and you're like, we need a 1-2 punch, I think that would be somebody of Keyshawn Vaughn's kind of build. I think that would be perfect for him. But I think he could be the lead back.
Where do you like him going?
Keyshawn Vaughn or DeAndre?
DeAndre, what team?
DeAndre, I would like to see him somewhere that passes a lot out of the backfield. I could see him being used in the Devonta Freeman role if they move on from him in Atlanta. I feel like that's a very nice fit, which I think they also should move on from Devonta Freeman. I think he's starting to fall off that cliff.
The big thing with Devonta Freeman is he's had a pretty bad injury history.
Exactly.
But, you know, I don't know. Maybe they like Ito Smith more than we know.
They might. I don't. I would rather have DeAndre Swift in that role. But,
all right. Well, I think we've spent enough time talking about Swifty. He's obviously was the best.
Oh, yeah.
It's not obvious necessarily, but, you know, I think a lot of people have moved on from our number 2 guy being that top dog.
Exactly. Jonathan Taylor. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more about him.
Jonathan Taylor out of Wisconsin. There's one thing that pops off the screen among everything else, and it's 2,003 yards this season. He did it. He's one of the only. I think he's the only back that has had 6,000 yards in 3 seasons in college football.
Phenom.
And you know, he just has a great vision, and that's what was so, you know, high praised about him. He was such a smart runner because he could get between the tackles without taking too much contact. And I mean, a lot of teams are shying away. You know, and almost 1,000 touches over his college career.
Yeah,
and that's a lot in 3 seasons. But you know, he's still the number 2 guy. And
I'm a big supporter in. I don't think it's the age of the running back. I think it's how much tread is on the wheels.
And that is why Josh Jacobs looked so valuable last year.
Exactly. It's not how old you are. You could be 33, but if you've only got a handful of touches and you're still a very talented runner, you can keep going. That's why I think DeMarco Murray fell so quick, because of how the bulk of his touches, whenever you get, and if you're not named Adrian Peterson, the runs that you're going to take are just, they wear you down so quick as a runner.
Yeah, no, you're right. If you don't have a lot of tread left, that can hurt you. It can hurt your value, and that's where we see Jonathan Taylor falling.
So, without further ado, what is the superlative we decided for Jonathan Taylor?
Most likely to peak in high school. Yeah, he's gonna be that washed up college guy who really wishes he can go back to the glory days.
I wouldn't even go as far to say peaked in high or washed up, because I feel like he's already gotten more touches at this point than most of the young running backs will have in their first 3 or 4 years into the league. He's starting off as a 5-year veteran. He might have a couple really good years, but his early retirement possibility is very high.
Yeah, that's something you don't really necessarily like to hear, especially for a guy who had that type of praise in college.
Exactly.
And he was just such a good runner. But with that many touches comes fatigue.
Yeah.
And that's where we sit there.
Yeah.
So let's move on. Number 3.
Next up, we have J.K. Dobbins, and I want to make a note of something that we have on our Google Docs that we have shared for our notes for the pod. He has best dual threat back, in the draft, which I've highlighted and told him multiple times to stop saying because DeAndre Swift is in this class. That is one of our big outliers in our boards. Also, where he has our number 5, we'll get to there. I think he very well might be my number 2, and I don't think you can put him above Swifty right now. But go ahead and tell us if you think he's such a good dual threat back. Please inform on what's so special about J.K. Dobbins.
All right, here's the deal. When it comes to me and J.K. Dobbins, he's fast, he has power, and he has, in my opinion, the best natural hands of any back in this class.
He doesn't run the meaningful routes like Swifty, but continue.
He doesn't have to run the meaningful routes. He has to catch the ball. And when I'm talking about that, when you're talking about dual threat guys, you're looking at the Devonta Freeman, Saquon Barkley's. Do they need to run the best routes? No, but if they can catch the ball and do something with it, that is a very special trait that not every back can do, because there's people later on in this draft that perhaps don't have those type of hands. Frankly, Jonathan Taylor, he's a good receiver out of the backfield, but he is no Swifty, and he's certainly no J.K. Dobbins.
Don't say certainly like it's J.K. Dobbins leading that race. But no, I do agree. J.K. Dobbins, he does have very good hands. Better than Swifty's, more meaningful than Swifty's routes, not in my opinion, but that's to everyone else. But I think a lot of why he's so good is what we're seeing when he runs. He gets to use a lot of those same traits. He's very elusive. I mean, he can get as many yards as you need him to. He just stays up. He's very good at finding that hole.
It's like he knows where the first down line is.
Exactly.
But I also think you're misconstruing what I'm saying. And I will make that perfectly clear when I tell you his superlative, most likely to never be single. And when I say that, I'm saying he's always going to have another guy in the backfield with him, someone to take that brunt, because he's not an every down back. So when I say he's the best dual threat, I'm not necessarily saying he's an every down back that's going to just he's going to catch every pass and he's going to run every down.
That's fair.
So I see him getting paired up with someone in backfields. I like him on the Titans. If they re-sign Derrick Henry, I think that'll be an awesome fit for him because he's not going to take every down, but he's going to have a lot of really good touches because Derrick Henry has stone hands.
Derrick Henry is not the man you want on a 3rd and 3 and you're running a slip screen to the right with your running back because it very well might just bounce off his helmet and now you're on 4th and 3. But I can understand that fit. I'm not sure that they'll convince themselves that they want to add another back, especially if they pay Derrick Henry like they're about to have to.
Yeah, and but we did see Dion Lewis was really good in that backfield with him, and exactly. I think that he can be their Dion Lewis because they need a guy like that. They need a receiver on those 3rd downs, those 3rd and mids where they want to get up to the guy out of the backfield and let him just do his own thing.
That's absolutely understandable, but I just don't. I'm not going to be able to get over that best dual threat thing. I have it highlighted.
Well, if you're not going to get over it, let's get on to 4.
All right.
So that you don't dwell on this.
Yeah, well, I'll end up dwelling. I could spend 20 minutes telling you.
Yeah, I know you can.
So for number 4, we have LSU's Clyde EdwardsHelaire. A lot of national attention from the championship game. Doesn't look like his stock's going to slow down any soon. Topher, what do you think about him?
Well, I think I'm actually very proud of this. I'm not gonna lie. I put time and thought into this. I think that he is going to be the best side piece out of this draft because a lot of the attention from that national championship obviously falls on Heisman winner, likely number 1 overall pick, Joe Burrow.
Yep.
So he was great in that game too. He was very good. He really it brought up his draft stock a lot.
Yeah.
But Joe Burrow. And now when he goes and gets drafted, I'm sure any backfield that he finds his way into will push him off to the side and just let him get he's going to end up, getting great touches, but he's not going to be that guy. He's going to be off to the side.
He's not the highlight of your offense.
And he never will be. Although, could he pull Kamara? Kamara was supposed to be a compliment piece.
I can understand. Yeah, I could see it.
But he popped off. And look, Alvin Kamara, Offensive Rookie of the Year. He was awesome.
I wouldn't go as far to say he's Kamara-esque. I would like to see him. I think my primary destination for him is if he's still around in the 3rd, for Arizona to go get him. Because David Johnson, I don't think he's it. I think he's very similar to who was it we mentioned earlier that I said the wheels were starting to come off. Was it DeMarco? It might have been DeMarco.
It was DeMarco.
He's getting to that point where he's starting to just slow down. He's not as talented as that one season. Injuries have obviously kind of derailed what we expected of him. But in a pass-heavy system, Clyde Edwards-Helaire used to just bust it open on occasion and kind of be that piece for Kyler Murray to kind of lean back to. Perfect.
And you know what, David Johnson, you won me fantasy year. You were awesome. That one's out to you, buddy. Glad we mentioned you.
Glad you got to shout out David Johnson.
Yes, because David Johnson is definitely going to be watching.
Big fan of the show, by the way. Yeah, David Johnson.
David Johnson, big fan of the show.
Loves the show. Come on sometime.
Number 5, Utah, Zach Moss. I'm just gonna. I might not even talk for this one. Let's just listen to you because you and Zach Moss.
I'm a huge Zach Moss guy. For one, I started watching some more tape today. We were kind of finishing up the touches on our big board, trying to figure out what we want to do. And I got on one of Zach Moss's game tapes because I don't like watching the highlights because I feel like that's obviously you're backing yourself into a corner with that. But the first thing I don't remember which game it was, but the first play that I saw on that game film was Zach Moss getting ran at to his right side, and he bounced a man off of the turf with his stiff arm. I mean, literally came up off the ground and then back on it.
Yeah, I'm actually looking at this right here. He literally has a stiff arm that can end most men's careers.
Yes.
So,
and I did actually go out and look up some more Zach Moss just stiff arm highlights. Didn't change. He is still just maybe the strongest man in this class. And it's insane to watch his cuts because, not to sound like I'm going overboard here, but I see a little Adrian Peterson in how he moves. I do. You can't tell which way he's running. He's sitting there, he jumps constantly, and then whenever he finds that hole, good luck. If there's less than two of you, good luck bringing him down. Superlative, I really do enjoy this one. Most likely to quietly take over the world, because I think that once he comes out of this draft class, he might be my odds-on favorite from the running back group if he is in a position where he gets to start to be the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I really like a guy like this in Houston, and I think you've spent enough time gushing over him. Number 6, please.
Number 6 is Florida State's Cam Akers. What did you see when you were watching some of that game tape?
He's a Kamara clone. I know I mentioned Kamara earlier. The guy's a straight up Kamara clone. It's hard to bring him down. He breaks tackles. It's like you need 3 tries at least. He just does it so well. And, if you look over his past couple stats, he hasn't even taken that many carries. A lot of tread left on the tires, too. And he had a really weak sophomore season. It was also the least carries he took.
Yeah.
But he had a weak sophomore season, bounced back, brought it to a solid 1,300 total yards. He's just an impressive dude.
Very impressive dude.
Yeah, there's not really much there's not much to hate about him.
The draft class this year is weird in the sense that it doesn't feel like there's any, super premium talent. Like DeAndre Swift, I feel like is still a reach to get in the first round.
The thing with DeAndre Swift is I see him as a compliment piece. The only 2 number 1 backs I really see in this draft class,
Zach Moss and
I know we just kind of tore him apart a little bit, but Jonathan Taylor, he has that number 1 back look to him.
Yeah, it's not even that we don't like his tape. It's that it's worrisome because of how much tape there already is.
Yeah, no, 3 years, 6,000 yards. You almost got 1,000 touches under your belt after 3 seasons. That's almost 400. That's a lot.
That's over 300 a game.
Yeah,
or 300 a season. Excuse me. But
that's more than some people get in the NFL.
But what did you end up pinning for Cam Akers?
Best celebrity lookalike. He looks like Kamara. Obviously not in
on
the
tape.
face.
On
he
tape.
doesn't look like Kamara, but on tape, you're watching the game and you feel like you're watching the Saints play. Except, if you're not throwing to Michael Thomas every down.
In different colors.
Yeah, it's not the Saints, but you feel like you're watching Kamara back in college.
And maybe he'll end up panning out to be what we expected Kamara to be, because there's no telling. But I feel like a lot of his pros, like you've been touching on, kind of mirror what Kamara did as well as his cons. But on to the next. Arizona State's Ino Benjamin, the 20-year-old. I'll repeat that again. He's going to be in the draft at 20 years of age. And whenever I watched his tape, you can tell his just side-to-side movement. He's already got that down pat. He loves to move around. He's got good explosiveness. He's just such a talented runner, but he gets kind of hidden at the school that he's at. Not a whole lot of production, but still a lot that jumps off of the tape that you could like. What are you thinking?
I think it's not so much his tape or his stats that I like about him. He's just this unforgettable guy. He gets so involved with the crowd. And he's such a great locker room presence. He is a leader. He's one of those guys that even if you're a backup, you'll be named the captain. Because you could just take over a locker room. So I made him. He is the most unforgettable player in this draft. Because if he gets into a locker room, he's going to change. He's going to change the entire way they feel.
He's a culture guy. Very similar to
big culture guy.
In head coaching, you look at that as Ron Rivera and Brian Flores. He's a player that you can bring in that's just an immediate... You know how in Madden you can get morale boosts?
Yeah, he puts everyone back up 20 points.
He's a human morale boost, exactly. So next up, Vanderbilt's Keyshawn Vaughn. God, he's so strong. I know I was gushing about Zach Moss being strong, but Keyshawn Vaughn, he was doing work against SEC defenses, and he's behind Vanderbilt's O-line. It was a bottom 3 SEC O-line. So a lot of talent there. What did you see when you watched him?
He's just, a lot of the guys have similar traits out of this class too. You don't see too much uniqueness among them because you see DeAndre Swift is comparable to Dobbins, and Jonathan Taylor is really the only standalone guy who just made himself hard to bring down with the shiftiness. So we keep coming back to him, and it's because he's a special talent. It's just 989 carries is a lot.
Had he came out last year, he would be a middle first round pick.
Absolutely, but the wear and tear. But we're talking about Keyshawn Vaughn here.
Exactly.
And the thing is with Keyshawn Vaughn is you see it with a lot of other guys. You see it with our number 10 guy who we're going to bring up, even our number 9 guy that he's going to take care of all by himself. And we saw it with Zach Moss. He's hard to bring down. He's just they all have these similar hard to bring down type of traits.
Yes.
That doesn't mean that they're not all a little bit different. I'd like to see him a little bit better in blocking.
Yeah.
He wasn't a great pass blocker.
No.
But really, he's just one of those guys that hate going down. And frankly, if I were going to give him an NFL comparison, I know it's weird because he's a backup, but Malcolm Brown is very similar.
Very understandable. I was thinking if he could get in a role, as we mentioned earlier, with DeAndre Swift, if Swifty could be the Sproles to Keyshawn Vaughn's Tolbert, I feel like that would be a very successful tandem.
I was thinking Pierre Thomas, but probably because that was such a cool deal.
I just hold a lot of love in my heart for Mike Tolbert for whatever reason. But anyways,
I feel it.
What superlative did we end up giving Keyshawn Vaughn?
Most dependable. He's always there when you need him.
Yes.
If you need 3 yards and he gets tackled at the 1, I don't know why, but he seems to just float there. He will always get you those first down yards if it's short, at least. Obviously, it's hard to drag 9 people 8 yards, but if he has to do it for 3, he'll take care of it. He will run through a defensive lineman. He's the type of guy who will put his head through a brick wall.
I could see Keyshawn Vaughn pursuing a career in the MMA post-NFL because that kid fights for yards. You're not going to bring him down easily, as we've been mentioning. He doesn't have the movement. He's not a very shifty guy by any means.
He's not side to side. He's put his head down and see how far he gets. And I love it. That's the type of back that I'd like.
Yeah.
Because he's just going to do whatever you tell him. He's like, yo, run straight. And he's like, I got you.
So next up, we have the final 2 players, which me and Topher obviously mirroring last week. We each took a player that's kind of a hidden gem in a sort. We gave them their own spotlight. Neither one of us have really seen the notes that one another have taken for this.
Get ready, because this guy happens to have the best name in college football right now.
Yes, the one that I decided to scout is the University of Miami running back DJ Dallas, not D.J. Deejay. And
I want to see his whole name on the back of a jersey instead of if they could just put DJ. I wish he went to the XFL so that they could get the nicknames.
They need to bring that back, but that's for a different podcast. DJ Dallas, when you watch his tape, there's one thing you'll notice. His feet are never still. Never still. He is constantly moving. He's great at finding that hole because once he gets through there, he hits that corner. He's a heavy back too, but he doesn't look like a goal line guy. But he's going to find his way in the end zone if you make it.
If I have a note, I love the way that he keeps his feet chopping like Bell. Because I have seen a little bit of his tape. I didn't come into this completely unprepared. He told me him. I just didn't see what he had to say. And now that I'm looking at it, I kind of like it. But he has this Le'Veon Bell feel, but he runs with no care, which just brings me back to the old days when Christine Michael actually got carries. Because when he was on the Packers, he was great.
Yes.
Fumbled like twice in 4 games, which isn't great.
No.
But he was a great runner. When he was on Seattle, he was great.
He was serviceable.
But they never gave him a chance, which was so unfair. I really hope this guy gets a chance because I'd love to see runners like that. They run without care. They don't care who's hitting them or who they hit.
And fitting his very enigmatic running style, when you watch him, you can't really pin down who you relate him to, which is exactly why I landed on most unique. There's just not anything of his tape that really reminds me of anybody else. Whenever I watch it, I look at it and I'm like, that's DJ Dallas. That's not somebody like Kamara. That's not somebody like Frank Gore. That's not somebody like insert whatever running back you want to insert right there. That's just DJ Dallas. But that should wrap up my analysis for my hidden gem. Bring it with yours.
Oh man, this guy, he is gigantic, man. he is the biggest, which is actually the superlative. Not most anything. He's just the biggest. Memphis running back Pat Taylor, man, is 6'3", 220 pounds. And I picked him not because I was expecting him to come out like a number one back, but because I was expecting him to come out and just like, when you're on the 2-yard line, how Mike Tolbert used to do it, but he was like 5'9", 280.
Yeah.
Which made no sense. It honestly defied the laws of fit. It's like watching a bumblebee fly.
It's sort of like if Zion was just reduced, but like kept the same size. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's 5'9" Zion Williams. You know what?
This
isn't
looks
the Mike
weird.
Tolbert podcast.
It already looks weird to see Zion how he is currently built, and now imagine, just Google it. You guys know how to work Google, I assume.
Look up Mike Tolbert without a shirt on. I don't get it.
Let's not sponsor that on the podcast. Let's just say look up Mike Tolbert, and then whatever you do beyond that is in your own time. But back to Pat Taylor.
Pat Taylor is just undeniably large. He is 6'3", 220, man. He is not a receiver.
No.
That's not what we're going for. He's not a number one back. He can't cut like most other backs. But neither could Brandon Jacobs, and he finished his career with a lot of touchdowns. And that's what this guy does. He gets you 3 yards, and he goes through his own offensive lineman.
He might as well be an offensive lineman from the point of attack.
His presence is known on the goal line, and I would love to see him on the Saints. Just take over that brunt role, because I like how Alvin Kamara worked when you had Mark Ingram there, another 5'9" power back, which, yeah, sure. But this guy's, he is like Latavius Murray without the shiftiness, which honestly I wish Latavius Murray didn't try to be so shifty. If that guy just dropped his shoulder, he'd take down anyone. But Pat Taylor is the man. And that's all I got. He's the biggest man.
He's just the biggest.
He is.
So that wraps up this episode of Tank Observers. Next week, we'll be doing what we do believe will be our final superlatives. We're going to do the offensive skill positions. We'll take some time to obviously deep dive into the defensive side of the ball, but it's going to get a little bit harder to pin down certain spots on the defense with the superlatives, so we're going to find a different way to bring that to you. But otherwise, I've been Jackson McCarty.
I am Chris Barr.
We'll see you next time.